This man obviously needs no introduction, but everybody knows he's the only man in this club that gets the title of Mr. Rotary. He is a past president serving the 91-92 year and has served as our sergeant at arms for longer than I can recall. But he is here today to tell us some information about how we should be proposing new members. So with no further ado, I turn it over to our own Fred Oeters.
Thank you. The reason I was asked to do this is we have a lot of new members in our club who have not yet had an opportunity to propose new members. And quite honestly, we have some senior members who've probably forgotten half of the process. So I'm here to kind of review the process of how to propose a new member. But before we do that, I think we need to step back a couple steps and ask a couple of other questions. The first being, what is Rotary? And if for those of you who were here a couple of months ago, you heard past District Governor George Robertson Burnett define Rotary in this manner. It's a membership organization of business, professional, and community leaders who get together for fellowship, networking, and to do good in their community and beyond. So what does that really say? You have to be invited to join, and we expect you to participate. That's the bottom line. That's what Rotary is all about. So then the next obvious question to me was, who makes a good Rotarian? Our membership application says this: a club should be composed of active members, all of whom are adult persons, of good character, and good business, professional, and or community reputation. And engaged as a proprietor, partner, corporate officer, or manager in any worthy and recognized business or profession. Or holding a professional, proprietary, executive, and managerial position and having executive capacity with discretionary authority. Now, what does that mean? Well, I think the first part, the executive capacity, is probably more easily understood. In your business or profession, do you have control over hiring and firing, setting work schedules, those kinds of functions? That would be typically a managerial position. But let's take it one step further and talk about this discretionary authority. When the rubber hits the road, we're talking about you have some control over your time. Because what are we asking of you? Your time. All of you here today made a commitment to be here. You took time out of your busy schedule. And that's what we're looking for in a good Rotarian, is somebody who has executive capacity and discretionary authority. Or retired from the first two definitions. Or, this really gets complicated at times, being a community leader who has demonstrated a record of community service through personal involvement in community affairs and a commitment to service and the objects of Rotary. So we've kind of now covered the waterfront. We've got business professionals, we've got people who own businesses or managers or executives, and our community leaders. That's what makes up a good Rotarian. And having his or her place of business or residence in the locality of the club. Now, what is the locality of the Lakeland Rotary Club? Our bylaws define that as the greater Lakeland area. So we're asking that potential members live or work in Lakeland. Now, before we finally get to the actual nuts and bolts of how to propose, I want to bring one more thing to your attention, and that's the third avenue of service is defined as the vocational service. And if you read that, you all heard this when you went through Rotary information. So you've heard this before, but I think it bears repeating. It calls for each Rotarian to aspire to a high ethical standard in their occupation and to contribute their talents to the needs of their community. That's the formal definition. What does it really mean? Well, to me, it means that this person lives and works by the precepts of the four-way test. That's the kind of person we're looking at to become a member of the Lakeland Rotary Club. Ask yourself this question. Would I recommend this person or their business to a close personal friend? Or more importantly, would I be willing to be a business partner with this same person? That's a tough question. And if we can't answer that in the affirmative, then maybe we need to step back and decide, is this somebody that's the best fit for Lakeland Rotary? If it sounds elitist, yes, I suppose it is, because we are asking for special people of high ethical standard in their personal life and in their business. One thing we tend to overlook in this process, we've met somebody we think might be a good Rotarian, but we're not fair to them because we don't give them a good picture of some of the commitment that we're going to ask. One of the first commitments would be regular attendance. Because if we're going to serve this community and beyond, we have to work together. And it's hard to work together with an empty chair. So if you're not here, we're missing your talents and your thoughts. The second commitment, and for some people this is huge, there is a financial commitment that all of us have made. The $125 initiation fee, the $300+ for dues. And if you come every week like we're asking you, there's that commitment of $3 to $12 depending on whether you want lunch or not. But probably most importantly, will this person get involved? That's where the rubber hits the road. Will they be an asset to this club? Well, if the pages don't stick together, we'll finally get around to how to propose a member. The first step would be to identify somebody that you think might make a good Lakeland Rotarian and find out if they have any interest in all. They may not be interested, and that's fine. You need to determine that early on. The second step then would be to determine if they're eligible. Remember the guidelines I talked about before? Executive capacity, discretionary authority, or do they live or work in the area? Do they meet those guidelines? And then there's one more step. Is there an open classification? Now, I don't know how many of you remember, but you came into Rotary by virtue of your occupation. The idea here is we're not a club totally of one occupation. We're not a club of bankers. We're not a club of attorneys. We're not a club of insurance guys. We believe in the diversity of occupation. That's the very foundation of Rotary. So is there an open classification? Well, how do you find that out? How many of you know that we have a classification chairperson? I see about 8, 10 hands. How many of you know who it is? I see 2 hands. That's not a good start. Celeste, would you stand up, please? Celeste Deardorff. Celeste is our classifications chairman. So if there's a question in your mind, is there an open classification? Talk to Celeste. If she's not available, talk to Beth or myself because we work together, the 3 of us, to kind of keep tabs on this. Our club, by virtue of its size, is allowed to have about 15 members in any given classification. And some of our classifications are close to that, and some are not. So we pay attention to the classification system. Okay? All right. They meet the qualifications. There is an open classification. They appear to be interested. Then you start bringing them as a guest. And the operative word there is guest. You bring them to several meetings if you can as your guest, and you introduce them to as many board members as you can track down at the meeting. Now, who knows who all our board members are? Not a lot of you. Okay, we've solved that problem. Go on the website. It lists all of the board members, so you know who to introduce them to. Now, the bottom line here. Please do not, and this is not optional, please do not introduce them as being proposed for membership or are considering membership. That creates a potential problem for us because eventually the board of directors has to do the final vote on the application. And they may find something that you didn't know about and this person not be invited to join. If you've been inviting them or as a guest, or not as a guest, but introducing them as being proposed for members, you're kind of stuck out in the breeze there. And we don't want to embarrass anybody. So just introduce them as your guest for that day. And again, try to get them to meet some of the board of directors because ultimately the board of directors are going to vote on the application as to whether this person would be a good fit with the Lakeland Rotary Club. So you complete the application and give it to either Beth or myself, and we will get it to the board of directors. If they are approved by the board, they will then be scheduled to attend a Rotary information session. Now, who in here has not been to a Rotary information session? I better not see a single hand. Because we've been doing this for a very long time. Everybody goes through Rotary information. The purpose of that is they get a bird's eye view of what this club's all about, and they can make an intelligent decision as to whether they really want to join this club or not. That's the whole purpose of that function. And you, as their sponsor, would be invited to join them at the Rotary information session because they may have some questions that they're uncomfortable asking there, but they may come up to you and ask more questions. Okay, so they've completed Rotary information. They've paid the initiation fee. Then their name is circulated to the club membership. Every one of you will get an email saying that John Smith has been proposed for membership in the Lakeland Rotary Club. Now, you may know some reason that he should not be in this club. If that's the case, you may lodge an objection. It has to be in writing, and it must be submitted to the board of directors within a 10-day business period. The board of directors will review the objection. If 3 or more board members agree with the objection, that person will not be brought into the Lakeland Rotary. It is not a blackball system. Just because I don't like the way somebody parts their hair or the jacket they wear, that's not good enough. It has to be a sustainable objection. Assuming there are no objections, the proposed member will then be scheduled for induction into the Lakeland Rotary Club. Now, as Jack said a minute ago, I can't believe I'm going to ask this, but are there any questions? If you can't remember everything that we talked about today, that's okay, because we have a brochure that we can get in your hands if you're ready to propose someone for membership. We can also get a copy of the application in your hands so you can read the criteria. And if all else fails, you go to the website, and in the lower left-hand corner, there's a link that says Club Documents. And all of this information is there as well. Sean. Well, we've encouraged them to join either Kiwanis or Lions, but, We're still in a free country. That's freedom of choice. So we don't mean to stand up here and sound elitist, but we are looking for a very specific type of person, one who has high ethical standards and is committed to the concept of service. That's really what it's all about. And to do that, they have to have management of their own time, at least to some degree. Don. Yes. The question is there an exception if somebody's coming from another Rotary Club? Yes, the general rule of thumb is that we would accept them unless we find out something that is really a problem. And that does not count against your numbers. Like if we're allowed 15 attorneys and we already have 15 attorneys, and this person is an attorney, that kind of goes around the end of that. So yes, if somebody's transferring in here from another Rotary Club, they still must go through the process. They have to be proposed, they're invited, proposed, go through our Rotary information because it's different from any other club, and then the process moves on. Any other questions? Yeah, Julie. Once they have completed Rotary information, you can introduce them as having done that. Because at that point, if they're still coming with you, they've paid their initiation fee and we will be bulleting their name, which is actually a good idea because general members may want to come up and meet this person. So once they've gone through Rotary information, yes, you can now say, this is my guest who has completed Rotary information. And that gives the members an opportunity to meet these people as well. Any other questions? Yeah. The question is, how often are the information sessions? There's no set rule on that. When we get enough, we do it. Enough sometimes is one, and sometimes we have 3 or 4. It just, we tried to set it up on like once a month. It just didn't seem to work out. And the committee who forms the Rotary Information Committee is flexible enough that we can convene fairly frequently and cover all the bases. So that's really not an issue. Now, if we know we've got maybe 1 or 2 in the pipeline, we may ask somebody to wait a week and, so that we have 3 or 4, but we try to accommodate. For some of the seasoned members, they'll remember it used to take about 6 to 8 weeks to get into this club because the process was just so cumbersome. And we've tried to streamline that where if we have somebody with a real interest, we can get the ball moving a little quicker. So, and plus you as their sponsor are probably getting tired of paying their lunch. So, we understand that part too. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, Julie. Okay, the question is, should you bring them a certain number of times before you fill out an app? Not really. I mean, there's no set guideline. I would say at least a couple times where they get to get a feel for what the club's about and meet some of the people who are the key players in the club, that kind of thing. Yeah. Anything else? Thank you, gang.